When a mortar doesn't go, yeah.
Here we go.
We'll call the regular adjourned meeting of the New Ulm City Council for July 5th, 2017, 4:30 PM to order. First items on the agenda is your consent agenda items.
I'll offer a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items. Any discussion on any? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 2, consider motion approving the issuance of a tobacco license for Blue Blaze LLC.
I'll offer the motion approving the issuance of the tobacco license for Blue Blaze.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. That's for July 6, 2017, ending June 30th, 2018. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 3A, number 1, consider motion approving with conditions the preliminary plot of Oak Bluffs 7th edition located at 1442 through 1448 10th North Street.
I'd like to add, the Planning Commission met on June 29th, recommended approval. In 2005, we recommended and approved similar subdivision directly across the street. And
It looks like their conditions are to pay a plating fee of $180. There's a waiving of the 340 platted lot fee for parkland dedication. They secure approval of the 3 required variances, and the new subdivisions will be subject to terms of the existing development agreements. So with that, I'll offer a motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 3A, number 2, consider a resolution approving a one condition on the application from John Gog on behalf of the JMG Rentals Incorporated, requesting a conditional use permit to locate a fitness center and karate classes on property zone 12 General Business District at 319 through 327 North Front Street.
again, I'd like to add, the Planning Commission recommended approval. There's a wide variety of mixed businesses in this development of this area with residential and everything, and so we recommended for the conditional use permit with conditions to record the permit with the Brown County.
And this is basically moving the Snap Fitness Center to this new location, right? And then
Correct.
adding the Marshall, and this parking is fine and.
Parking is
obviously-
adequate. There's, I believe, one house left that has to be removed yet from the property, and then
So what kind of parking is available there? Did you guys talk about that?
we talked about it, and
We're
I
offhand.
believe on your packet here, let's get, this should be the corner lot would be the parking lot. There's already a,
Okay.
kind of hard to see on the, it's kind of that L-shaped leg right behind North Side Garage there would be the parking. And he kind of indicated he was looking at running it east-west, the
Okay.
building, if I'm correct. Is that correct, John?
And since Mr. John is here, anything you want to add to this project? No?
Before I make a motion, I just want to mention to the public, in 2004, we gave it to junior baseball, 2009, the wrestling. In 2011, Gary Oshmurder got one for their girls' fast pitch, and we do have another, like, CrossFit exercise place. Adam Reinhardt received one in 14. So with that, I'll offer a resolution, waive the reading, approving with one condition, the application of John Gog on behalf of JMG Rentals Incorporated, requesting a conditional use permit to locate a fitness center and karate classes on property zoned I-2, General Industrial District at 319 to 327 North Front.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to offer the resolution, waived reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none. Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 3A, number 3, consider a resolution approving the conditions of an application from Joe Keesley for a conditional use permit to allow the operations of a hair salon at the home occupation at 55 Jonathan Drive.
I'd like to add that the Planning Commission recommended approval at the June 29th, 2017 meeting. And again, it was just a recommendation, but I guess I still have a couple questions maybe for the city attorney, if he's reviewed the covenances and if everything is correct.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, Counselor Mack, yes, I have. These were provided to me, I think, prior to your meeting. And in reviewing the covenants, a couple of things I think stood out. First, as a general question, I think it is an open issue as far as whether or not the city council is bound by private covenants. It's really a question of otherwise, does it meet the requirements that you would otherwise have to consider granting this? If someone wants to enforce the covenants, who is standing to do so, who's a property owner, that's a private matter between them and the applicant. I think of a particular question I had, though, was in looking at the covenants themselves. They clearly state that they shall be used as residential lots. And I believe that the Nisleys are using this as a residential lot. There's no question about that. The intent on these may have been to somehow prohibit any sort of home occupation, but there is a provision in the covenants that says no sign of any kind shall be displayed to the public view on any lot except one professional sign, not more than 1 foot. So it seems if they were allowing that, they must have been anticipating some kind of home occupation. Otherwise, why would you have a sign in
Right.
front of your house?
Wow.
Sure.
So it's not that clear. And again, I don't think it rises to a level where these covenants would prohibit you from granting this if you felt that it otherwise met the criteria. So,
And previously, we have granted 14 of these, I believe, since 1977 is what Dave Schnurrt had.
yes, I think it's
The information
been
above
fairly
and-
common for this type of activity.
And we were trying to be consistent with what we've granted in the past for the same business, so that's why we were recommending approval. I did receive a phone call from Mr. Dwayne Witt in regards to this, and he expressed his concerns about parking, traffic, home values, things of that nature. I believe you've got a copy of the letters, and there was 2 other letters,
Yep.
that aspect. One of the letters, I believe, is from Mr. Wilson, and he had asked that if we would grant this application, if we could limit it to a small part-time business and a small group of family and friends, and that's what the applicant had stated that she had intended. And she was fine with that at the hearing. I don't know if we want to put that in a document or not.
I think it might be difficult to express. I don't
Yeah,
think that's
I'm just-
normally how you determine anyone who would be coming to the home, if it's a family or a friend or.
Yeah, I'm just relaying the
Right.
letter for the information as a whole, but,
Well, I know when I read through the document, it talks about how she's going to be a stay-at-home mom and wants to cut hair periodically. Well, she can't have a huge business when you're cutting hair, so you can't really have a traffic issue because you can't do more than one person's hair at a time,
yeah,
especially when you got a small child. So I don't see it as becoming a traffic issue.
and you got a triple stall garage with adequate parking, so they had stated that they would be parking in their driveway, one
Yeah,
vehicle.
so it's probably
per
off-street
time.
parking anyway.
Correct. So,
One other comment, with all the conditional use permits that I was involved in the past, and I believe Dave Schrobeck's not here, but he'd agree, we never received a complaint when we did a beauty hair salon in a residence. To my knowledge, we did not.
yeah. and-
Safety or traffic or,
Yeah, because you're not going to do, 4 hairs at one time. You're going with one person. You're just,
Correct.
it's going to be one at a time, maybe with one waiting. So, with that information, I'm going to offer the resolution, waive the reading.
Second.
second,
With conditions?
with the conditions.
With the condition, excuse me, yes. And the condition, applicant will pay the cost to record the permit. The applicant will secure necessary licensing from appropriate governmental units. Hours of operation will not exceed beyond 9 PM each day.
Okay.
Second.
You have a second? We have a motion and a second to offer resolution waived reading, approving with conditions to permit. Any more discussion? Seeing none. Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item 3B, number 1, consider a variance request from Jeff Peterson for a variance from side yard lot width and lot area regulations of the city code to allow a twin home to be constructed.
And I'd like to add that the Board of Zoning met and recommended approval of this request, and setback of the side yard is 10 foot. The lot is to have a minimum width of 50 foot width, 125 feet deep, 6,000 square feet of area to construct a twin home. There would need to be a 0 setback on the side property line, and the width of the interior lot would be 45 feet to the area of the lot of 5,850 feet to be consistent with across the street for the lot.
Have we approved a lot of 0 setbacks? I'm not a real fan of this.
I think there was a time there when they were developed up in the addition that I think it was every other week the council was looking at those, and I believe requests were actually made, let's change our ordinance so we don't have to keep seeing these. We've done numerous ones of these.
All right.
Our ordinance doesn't fit the twin home concept that started
Right.
10, 12 years ago.
Correct.
We're going to start seeing a lot more of those.
Undoubtedly.
And that's what the market is requesting right
Yeah.
now.
Yep. All right. I just thought I had to ask.
I'll offer the motion to accept the variance request from Jeff Peterson. And there is no condition, so.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to accept the conditions. Any more discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 3B, number 2, consider a variance request from Ann Ayler to allow a fence to be located 0 from the rear property line.
And Board of Zoning met, and if you look at your packet, the house is currently right on the alley, and the existing patio is on the alley also. So they would like to go 6 feet up from the existing patio on the line, which normally would require a setback. And there's nothing hindering as far as obstructions for view. It's a narrower alley. They would like to have some privacy on their patio. And there was no objections from the neighbors. Happens to be a new owner that purchased the home just recently.
Okay.
Is another reason just for first seeing this request.
You didn't get
It's-
any concerns from the neighbors?
No, and it's a special circumstance where some of the older parts of town, the homes are built right up to the alley or up to the street side
Yeah.
and the sidewalk. So they would like to put on the alley side, continue straight up from their existing patio.
Okay.
You have any questions in regards with the pictures or?
Anybody, any comments, concerns?
I'll offer the motion to accept the variance request from Ann Ayers.
Second.
Ayers.
We got a motion and a second to accept the variance request. Any more discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Item 4A, consider recommendation from the Golf Cart Special Vehicle Committee relating to the adoption of a special vehicle ordinance. I guess since I was the chairman of that committee, I'll give it a little shot to start out. Dave Christian and our city attorney also sat on it, including the city manager, and we have Dennis Moore and some others in the audience. Plus, we had a good audience during our meetings also. But as you see in the ordinance is adopted primary from the League of Cities as a recommendation. We made several changes to it. The feeling of the committee is that we didn't want younger children driving That's why we did set an age limit of 16. One thing that is considerably different from this ordinance, if adopted, versus some of the other cities that I'm familiar with, is we are not permitting the vehicle. What we're doing is we're permitting the person operating the vehicle. So the person would have, as it states in here, name and address, date of birth, has to have driver's license or a reason why he doesn't have it, has to have the vehicle insured. All that information would be documented here at City Hall. Then we would give that person the permit. So in my case, if I licensed or permitted myself, and I turned in all the information off of my four-wheeler, that doesn't mean my children can drive it, doesn't mean my wife can drive it. She would have to come in, or they would have to come in if they're 16 years of age or older. And we're not, the ordinance is to cover golf carts, all-terrain vehicles, mini trucks, and that type of thing. I think city attorney will probably get into it in more detail, but basically, like I said, we don't want younger people driving them. And then we're looking at it possibly a fee for 3 years. And be honest, I have four-wheelers and I'm not gonna go through the hassle to have this done, but I know there's people that want it, so. Other than that, Dave?
The one comment, and a lot of people that did talk to me about this, a lot of them did not realize, in our ordinance today, you can take your snowmobile or ATV and leave your house and head directly out of the city of New Ulm. I mean, it's not gonna be something new that you're gonna see. I mean, I see ATVs go down Front Street, they're heading out of New Ulm. This is so you can actually, after you're done a day out with the ATV, I can stop at Happy Joe's or I can stop at McDonald's, park there, get a burger and head for home. I mean, a lot of people didn't know that you actually can use them in the city today, heading in or out of the city. That's one important thing I wanted to talk about.
I have a couple, I was not on the committee, so I was not privy to some of the conversations, but let me walk you through a couple of my concerns. Under subdivision 2, item B, the applicant, so the nature of the applicant's physical handicapped, if any. So I got a real problem, and I understand now, right before the meeting, a little bit about that maybe somebody might not have the ability to drive a car, but could have the ability to drive a golf cart. Is that my understanding of what discussion was that about? That was what that pertains to?
Mr. President, I think in looking at the potential applicants for these permits, could be any citizen, of course, but I think that the people who were at the meetings indicated that there might be strong interest by people who, because of physical issues, may not have a license to drive a car, may not drive a car, even if they have a license. There was concern among the committee members about, well, is it going to be safe for that person to operate one of these types of vehicles? And that's why, as part of the permit, if there was a disability or issue like that, it has to be identified. And you're probably going to be getting to this, but if it was to operate a golf cart or the utility task vehicle or the ATV, they would also need to have a physician's certificate indicating that they were physically capable of doing so. If you have a person who may have vision impaired or have other limitations, and if that's the case, we wanted to make sure that there were not going to be issues along those lines. And this would be something that at least would provide some indication to the city that there might be some issues of concern.
I'm going to struggle a little bit with this, because if they can't get an application to drive a vehicle, I have a really hard time approving them to drive an all-terrain vehicle or a golf cart, and just kind of where I'm going with this. My next question then, Charlie, from what you said, if it's $50 per applicant, so say if it is you and your wife and maybe your son and your daughter, you're going to pay $200 to drive that cart?
Correct.
Just like if you
Wow.
wanted a driver's license and you had one car in your garage. Yeah, everybody gets a license.
Okay.
And maybe if I could interrupt you, Counselor, I mean,
Yep.
this is here for discussion
Yes,
purposes
absolutely.
because
Yep.
this is something, we had 3 meetings on it. It's very lengthy. There's a lot of different ways this could be worded.
Sure.
And that's why we wanted to get input from the
Mhm.
council, whether or not you even want the ordinance. If you do you want to make changes to it? Because there was a lot of adjustments made during the course of our meeting. So
Hey.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and I'm certainly, the other counselors can weigh in too. At this point, I'd like to see us approve it. If you have a valid Minnesota driver's license, you can get a permit to drive a golf cart. I think we can look down the road at exceptions and that kind of thing, but I guess I'm really thinking it's too encompassing and there's too many complications here. If you go to subdivision 5A, the applicant must demonstrate that he or she holds a valid Minnesota driver's license.
That's to operate a mini truck.
Mini truck.
That's state law.
To mini truck, okay. But there's certain sections in here where it talks about you can't drive a vehicle if you have a revoked license, but it doesn't say anything about having a suspended license,
That's right.
which, to me, there's more suspended people driving on suspended licenses than there are on revoked
I think,
licenses.
and maybe the committee would have wanted both to apply.
Can it just say valid driver's license?
Well, as I'm sure you're aware, the state has different levels of action on driver's licenses. Revocation is more serious than suspension.
It is, absolutely.
So, I mean,
You don't pay
suspension
it.
means that they've not canceled it, they've just taken away, you pay your fine or whatever, they give it back to you.
Right.
If it's revoked, you did something serious enough where you're starting all over again. You have to apply for a new license.
But I don't want people to try and get around the driver's license rules by now being able to drive a golf cart. So say their license is suspended, well, I'm just
Well,
gonna
we
start
could
driving my
certainly-
golf cart. I
We
mean,
could
that's my,
certainly add suspended to this
or I think it
as
just
well.
can say must have and maintain a valid driver's license.
Well,
That would cover it too, right?
Well, and that's adding an additional requirement because this is something they would be providing when they apply. It's a 3-year permit.
Mm-hmm.
During the 3 years, their license was revoked. We're not going to know about it unless they would be stopped
Unless
or
they'd be
something.
stopped, correct.
Right,
Mhm.
right. But if that would be an additional requirement, that they must also maintain it during the period that the permit would be in place, you could certainly add that, however
Right.
you want to
That's
do it.
my preference. I will see what the other folks say. Was there a reason that, was the 25 mile an hour speed limit, was that?
That's an AT requirement.
Okay, I didn't know if that was a special requirement, because I know golf carts usually are about 20 miles per hour, and ATVs can go very fast. Okay. The last subdivision talks about a windshield. The mini trucks, aren't there quite a few of them that don't have windshields as well?
I think they all do that I've seen.
Really?
For a mini truck, so I think they really do look like shrunken trucks. usually.
Okay. I wasn't sure, I just questioned that, because I think I've seen some without, but maybe I'm mistaken there. 16 and under, I kind of questioned that a little bit too, but I'm okay with it again, is they have a valid driver's license and insurance and a helmet, as they were talking about here. I go back to that physical handicap thing, and I just got a real problem with anybody having to give the city information about my physical handicap so I can get a license. I just struggle with that.
Oh, that can be deleted. I mean, that's
I know,
something,
just
if you don't
I-
think it's appropriate,
Plus, I don't know if the doctors, our medical professionals, are going to want to get into having to do all that. I don't know. Maybe there's more to that issue than I'm aware of. But I think it'd be nice to approve it with a person having a valid driver's license, and then if we want to get into special circumstances with people that have physical handicaps, that we can create another way for them to get approved down the road.
well, normally if someone has a driver's license, presumably they're physically capable of operating a
Yes.
car. And I think what you're inferring, which I certainly understand, is then you could operate any one of these.
Absolutely, yes.
And that, but during the course of the committee meetings, there was some very strong comments by the people present that they wanted folks who didn't have a driver's license to be able to get one of these permits. If you were to just have that as a flat requirement, then probably the language about the disclosing any disability and the doctor's certificate probably could be removed.
Correct. That's my 2 cents.
Bourne would like to speak.
I guess I still have some questions on, when you did your research on this, what communities are using this right now, and
Well,
what kind of history do you have?
Councilor Fisher, there's a lot of communities that have these, and frankly, their ordinances are all over the place. So this is, as Councilor Christian noted, I think, this was based upon the League of Cities model. And then from that, we took input from the people who were on the committee about how they'd like to see it adjusted, and that's where we resulted with what we have in front of us.
But what other communities do you have a list of communities? Did you contact any other communities, see what works, what didn't work, or you just?
Well, I don't know that we got feedback. We got feedback from quite a few communities, and I think the chief helped out with that too. But there wasn't anything specifically about, well, we really wish that they had to get doctor's certificates, or it was either, yeah, we had it and we dropped it because it wasn't working out, we didn't like it for whatever reason, or we've got it and we don't think we have any problems, period. There wasn't anything about this particular term being good, bad, or otherwise, so we just didn't get that kind of feedback.
Dennis?
Dennis Bourne, 711 South Front Street. I was on the subcommittee also. And what you're talking about for driver's license, there's a state law that sets up the process for the city to pass this ordinance to permit it. And it's 169.045, special vehicle use on the roadway. And in subdivision 7, under non-application of certain laws, it says the provisions of chapter 171, which is the driver's license chapter, are applicable to persons operating mini trucks, but are not applicable to persons operating motorized golf carts, utility test vehicles, or all-terrain vehicles under permit on designated roadways pursuant to this section. You can't require them, the way I read that, you can't require them to have a driver's license. So that creates a bit of a problem. The city attorney doesn't agree with me particularly, but I think other attorneys would. So I just want you to be aware of that.
Well, we pay this guy.
But he's not my attorney.
That's right. I'm the city's attorney.
But he is ours.
And I think we had a lot of discussion about this with Mr. Bourne. I absolutely understand the interpretation he's putting on that part of the statute. My reading of it is that it was not going to be an automatic state requirement, so that the city would have the option of either requiring it or not. But what he's saying, some judge might disagree. And it's certainly possible that if someone was to take the city to court, if we required a license saying that's how that should be interpreted, they might persuade a judge that that's the case. I've not seen any laws or any court decisions where it's come up, so we just don't know at this point in time.
As Roger stated, we spent a lot of time, the committee, on that particular subject. And there was strong feeling by several amount of committee that thought the same, that, drivers, myself particularly, I personally believe, like you said, that they should have a driver's license. And there's nothing stopping us from doing it. If somebody wants to take us to court to prove they don't need it, then so be it. But I don't think there's anybody who want to spend that kind of money to find out.
So did anybody on the committee give an example of how that would be, why they wouldn't have a valid driver's license and then still be able to drive a vehicle? Like
Well,
that?
that's where-
Is there-
You had in here it states that you have to have a reason of why you don't have one. In
Right,
other words,
right.
as you just said, if somebody comes in and got a DWI and now they
Right.
want to come in here and run a golf cart around town, well, we aren't going to issue one to them. There's
But
no
if it's
reason.
a-
We aren't trying, huh?
Who will determine that? Will that be the city attorney that will determine that request?
Well, if they
Well,
don't
we're
have
gonna-
No, I mean, Counselor, that's something I've not, if you adopt an ordinance like this one, The next step is I will have to draft the permit application. I haven't done that yet until we know we're going to need it. But that's the kind of information that would need to be provided, and then depending upon whether or not a license, valid license has to be shown. If you're not going to require the valid license, we would probably want something on the application where the person would be verifying under oath that their license has not been revoked or suspended, if you want to add that. So at least we have something that we could rely upon. And I guess if they're going to lie or perjure themselves, I don't know that we're going to require them to, go further than that as far as bring in driver's records, or, it's possible there are people who've never had a license. So anyway, that's the way we would handle that, though.
If there is a question that they don't have a driver's license, couldn't we just refer it to our chief of police he can go in and check it why they don't have one, or not? Or can't
Well, we
do
would
that?
probably want to include something in the permit that would authorize him to do that, because law enforcement's got to have a bona fide reason to be looking at driving records. That's become real clear in the last few years.
So you don't think that that would be the case if somebody applied for one of these licenses? We would not verify that it's a valid driver's license?
Well, I think we would, when you apply for a Minnesota driver's license, part of the application is you're stating that you've never had a license revoked in another state. And they're relying on that. They're not going to check with every state in the union to see if you ever would have had one. So this would be the same kind of reliance here. I think we'd do it the same way.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Michael Shanneman. I live on 118 North Garden. I was part of the special committee. There's about 80 cities in the state of Minnesota that have this, to answer your question. And we've done the research as the committee. My whole thought was, and still is, we need to simplify this and not overcomplicate it to the point where no one's interested. We've spent so much time and had so much effort to this that if we were looking at this to say, what are we doing with this? And why are we doing it? We've spent so much time, money, and effort, we've already lost that. So what do we gain? What are we gaining from this by passing this? Is it we're progressive, we're not progressive, we're overthinking it, we're overcomplicating it so no one can get it? It's something that I joined the committee just to help it through, because it can't be so complicated that no one's going to use it. Then why did we spend all this time doing it? And then why did we present it to the council just to have it shot down? If you have a valid driver's license, to have a medical card to use it, that's a commercial application. You're using that as a commercial application to justify the fact to drive a golf cart, to get groceries, to go down the street, to have a four-wheeler, to do a fun activity. The commercial aspect of it, I understand because of the medical application. But if you have a driver's license, keep it simple. Let the driver who has a driver's license get an application to drive a not necessarily golf cart, but we have to change that mindset as well to that category of UTV, utility truck, golf cart, whatever it is. We look at it as now it was the safety aspect of a golf cart. Well, there's a lot of things that are safer as a golf cart than, say for instance, a motorcycle. You look at those things and you compare that. We were concerned as a city, as a part of a committee, that someone would get hurt. Okay, so we walk across the street, we bicycle, we can get hurt anywhere. So it's just a matter of who we're providing this to. If you have a valid driver's license, how many hoops do you need to jump through and keep it common sense? Because who's going to run this? The city's going to lose money trying to validate someone operating a golf cart or a four-wheeler. How's Myron going to chase these people down? Hey, you looked interesting because you didn't have this, or that. No, you have a valid driver's license issued by the state. It's simple. We are overcomplicating it. If we don't want to do it as a city, then make it plain and clear that we just don't want it. But to make it so that we've done all of these steps to protect us, is it really protecting us? And for what reason? I mean, it's just, it's part of a means of transportation. And I started this months ago. We all started this months ago. Electric vehicles are not going away. They will not go away. That's part of the future of, and how we're going to have to embrace what's going to take place with the future of electric vehicles and how we're going to categorize them as well. So I'm kind of with Councilor Schultz on this, is to simplify it a little bit. If things need to be modified, then they are modified. But let's not modify something that it's not even broken. We're breaking it to see how many times it can be broken before we can apply the simple foundation of getting this passed, because it's not a matter, like I said before, of is it going to pass or is it not going to pass? It's going to pass sometime, because the future is going to have electric vehicles. It's just how the city embraces that. I just feel that if we simplify it and then we grow with it and then modify it, then we have a better opportunity.
I
Thank
agree
you.
with what you said. You were on the committee, you know that all the time we were talking about the idea of driver's license, no driver's license. And that's where a lot of this other stuff came into it.
Oh, sure.
And if we'd have said, have a driver's license right from the start, we don't need this doctor's certificate, we don't need any of this disability or anything, because you aren't going to have a driver's license if you got, they'll revoke it for a disability there. So it's just plain
And
and
it's
simple.
it's simple for us to monitor that.
Correct.
And if I understand what the city attorney did to protect the city. I agree. There are so many things that we did so right, but ultimately, by doing all this, we've blocked ourselves out of even doing it. How many people will ultimately go, I want to jump through that fiery hoop of...
Mr. Shanaman, what, if I can interject here, Mr. President, I think you might have missed one meeting that you couldn't attend. And at least one of the meetings, some of the people on the committee or in attendance were stating pretty emphatically that they thought this should apply to people who are not physically getting a driver's license. That's why this language is in here.
I get it.
It's because they were very seriously saying, no, just because you can't drive a car, you should be able to drive these. This is your alternative means of transportation. So we were looking at people who wouldn't have licenses. And we wanted to make sure that they could safely operate and other drivers, pedestrians, are going to be safe. So that's why this is all in there.
Understood.
As I said before, if it's going to be a requirement that you have a license, that would probably take care of those things. Although I will add this, I'm not even sure how long your driver's license is good for, 10 years? If
4 years.
renewal, you don't have to renew it every 4 years, I don't think, do you? 5 years? Okay.
Yeah.
So you got 5 years. If you have someone who's, had it for 4 and they're 80 years old, and they might not be getting it, I mean, they think these are some of the people who would be interested in doing this. In any case, if you have to have a license, if the council wants this ordinance, and if you want to change it to that, that's why we're discussing it. And I think, frankly, I know this is a long ordinance, but most of the ordinance is dealing with specifications for the equipment, insurance, and things like that.
Right.
So I think the other parts of this, and a lot of it is state law, so I think it would need to still be in there. So
And
we can try and simplify it, but we can only do it so far.
The committee was pretty diligent on covering all of the bases. But I think to look at covering all of the bases for what applies to, you're looking at the numbers. How many people are going to do this? How many people are going to try for the exemption? And I see the exemption driving the force of this entire the approval of it. We don't want to lose the approval for an exemption. We want to have it approved and then have the exemption presented in a future sense.
And that's exactly what I'm proposing at this point, and I'm kind of hearing consensus on that. For now, get this passed with a valid driver's license.
With the snowmobiles and the ATVs, there's it says direct line, and I believe it also says there's certain streets that the snowmobile cannot
Right.
be on. Do we have to put that in the
There
ordinance
is some
too?
stuff.
It is.
about that.
It is, it's all in
That's
there?
major
Okay.
highways.
It can't
I
be on
didn't read
state
it all.
highway.
Yeah, it's, I think
Yeah,
actually in a
but I
couple of
lost it.
places, can't be on any county, state, or federal highways.
Right.
Okay.
So that gets rid of Broadway, and it gets rid of 14, it gets rid
Well,
of...
I just wanted to make sure.
The only one it
was-
doesn't cover is 10th Street Hill, because that's a city street.
Excuse me, Mr. President, that's a county state aid highway.
10th Street.
all the way up
That's
to
South
Glenview.
Street.
So they can't go up that one either. So they can only go 5th North.
There, you just covered that.
Come up to my ward. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So is that,
I guess I've got one more question in regards to four-wheelers. Now, 16-year-old can drive that. Do they have to have a helmet? Does that state that
I
in
Right.
believe that's state law.
that state law?
I believe so,
Okay,
yes.
so we don't have to write it in ours.
We're even saying that, and Roger can correct me if I'm wrong, we're saying even if you're under 18, you will have a helmet in a golf cart.
And we did apply it to golf carts too, right?
We-
Your question
we've
was
just-
about the ATVs,
Yes.
but right, yep.
If
Okay,
you're gonna go on the
so-
street, you're gonna go by whatever the law is.
Okay.
and to make it clear to our viewing audience, that if this is approved tonight, we're just basically asking our city attorney to redraft this ordinance, bring it back,
For reading.
another reading, another public hearing,
Well, that would be for the first reading.
the first reading.
Right.
And then you'd have a second reading, and then it would go into effect 30 days after that.
Correct.
So it's getting pretty cold out by that time. So I'm going to move this, see if I can move this along and offer a motion to direct the city attorney to prepare an ordinance allowing for special use of these special vehicles in city streets and alleys with the basic premise of a valid driver's license and removing some of the other things we talked about.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 4B, consider resolution to accept a grant from the National Park Service for the updating of the downtown preservation design guidelines.
Since I'm on the HPC committee, I'll offer a resolution, waive the reading to adopt acceptance of the grant for the National Park Service for the updating of the downtown preservation guidelines in the amount of $5,850.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to offer the resolution, waive the reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none. Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries.
Mr. President, on that same line, I'd like to send out an invitation for anyone that would like to be on the Heritage Preservation Commission to please contact me. So far, people who have called in or written in and said they'd like to be on a commission have turned me down on this commission. There have been resignations, there have been deaths. I've got a couple of holes in the commissions, and this is one of the commissions that I have not been able to fill so far. So if somebody would like to be on that commission, please give me a call or send me an email.
You've heard it. Call him.
Yes, call him, call the mayor.
Yep. Okay, item 5A, consider a motion to schedule an informational budget session to provide guidance to initiatives for staff in the upcoming 2018 budget complications. Anyway, that was an issue that I asked to have put on the council. Instead of waiting till all the budget work is done and everything is presented to us, I thought it'd be nice just to have a work session for the council to come in and discuss things before the staff goes and actually makes up their budget. If there's anything that we want to see changed, anything, ideas, suggestions, or whatever it might happen to be, so.
Nicole, do you have some suggestions on when, timeline for that?
You know, just to say, you know, department heads are already working on their budgets to some extent. A couple of them will probably finish in the next week. I know we usually have theirs in early. If you would want any specific numbers already or estimates, we probably won't have a lot of that put together till the 31st of July.
I don't think any of this has to do with any numbers whatsoever. This isn't what it's about. It's maybe as the council, which we've never done since I've been on in 9 years, to sit down and talk about things and then present it to the staff.
Charlie, you talking more big ticket items, cost of living?
We could be talking anything, whatever's on your mind. It's just gonna be open. There ain't gonna be no agenda. There's just, we're gonna come in. And I know just different ones have contacted me. They got different things that they like to discuss, and that's what it's about.
So you thinking about doing it before a council meeting or almost after? You never know for sure when we're gonna be done, and you have to have it open to the public.
Right now, the department heads they have to have everything into finance by July 31st in order for us to get through the rest of the process of putting it together, reviewing it, and then getting together with each of the department heads to review it.
Okay.
So that we can get it to that meeting in September for that preliminary approval. So, if you wanted to provide direction, we would need that before the 31st.
So,
Are we
Sooner the
looking at-
better, actually.
So how much, we have to put it in the paper that we're having a special meeting, so we can't do it right now. Okay,
And I'm out next week.
me too. We gotta do it before Sturgis.
so
So you're looking at like before the next council meeting, like the 18th?
Like something like 3:30, something like that, potentially? Is that what,
I'm fine with that.
Will an hour be enough? Because you're going to have the department heads. You're
No.
planning no department heads.
No department, just city
So-
council.
Just council?
Does council?
Council and
Will-
city attorney and manager, or just
Yep.
council?
Brian?
Will-
I don't know,
Actually,
Roger.
I've never attended.
Roger
would-
doesn't want to be there.
Okay, just council.
Just the council and Brian and
Okay.
Nicole.
Would we get any input from the department heads
I think
on
the
what
engineer should be
projects
there.
that they might be putting in for the following year? Just
I think we can
What
do that.
ideas of changes that they're requesting, if anybody's adding positions or, do you want any ideas on where they're headed that way?
I guess that's what we got discussion for. Do we? It's up to you. I personally don't think we need them, but I don't know.
Well, you
I
said-
mean, it ain't gonna hurt.
You said that never done this on council prior
Right,
at this point in time, so not to say you can't have a second meeting either.
correct.
So
Oh, sure, we've done that
I
before.
think it's just to get a kickback feel from the city council where we'd like to go.
Okay.
Then we can always, I know we maybe should have done this 2 months ago, but, it's just one of those things.
Is this anything you want input from the PUC commission on? As far as they're
I'm gonna
going, or
say
you're just looking at the city
Just city,
side of things?
just city.
Oh.
That's all we have.
Mr. President, I'm not sure if you were looking at doing this before the next July meeting, because we could probably adjourn tonight's meeting to a work session, so you wouldn't have to do the special notice. If you
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to do that.
Oh, I'm open to it.
I'm open.
I'm open to that.
Work for you, Les?
I think I'm going to be good, yeah.
So I'll take a crack at this. Do we want to make a motion to schedule a budget work session, adjourn to a budget work session on July 18th at 3:30 PM at City Hall?
Is that what we were talking?
I think we were talking today.
Roger mentioned we could even do it today.
We could do it today after this
Oh,
meeting.
right, like right now?
Oh,
Yeah.
boys,
Or when were you talking?
well, it's
Last
not on the
meeting?
agenda. You'd have to suspend the rules and add this to the agenda. I thought you wanted to do this
Oh.
at the next
Yeah.
meeting.
Well, we
Yeah.
could do it then, people have time to think about it.
Right,
Yeah.
I think
And then
Yeah, I
Brian
would-
would be here too.
Brian would be here too then,
Yeah.
right? Let's just, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll leave the motion as it stands,
So what,
adjourning
3
to
o'clock?
I'll second that
3, 4?
motion.
3:30 or 3?
Let's go 3.
That work for everybody? 3?
Or not.
Make it happen.
I can make it work.
Just in,
Yep.
just in case it
Yep. I
gets a
think-
little longer.
We get done
Does
early.
that
we
work
can-
with you, Larry?
I can make it happen.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Now you can make a
Motion and a
motion.
second.
So, yep, I adjourned, yep, made the motion.
Okay.
Did somebody
So-
second? Did I miss
I'll
that?
second it.
I second
Counselor
it.
Schultz did.
Oh, did he?
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5C, first reading of ordinance number 17-015, fifth series, amending section 8.21 of the city code, City of New Ulm, relative to dog and cat regulations and licensing.
Did you skip? 5B.
Charlie, we forgot
skipped one.
5B, but we could come back to that.
Let me go back.
We could come back
I'll
to
do
it
this one. This one's an easy one.
Yeah.
5B, consider resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing the terms and conditions of the sale and set a date for August 1st, 2017 at 10 a.m. in amount of $2,995,000 for a general obligation permanent improvement revolving fund bond series 2017B and in amount of $5,560,000 for general obligation public utility revenue bond series 2017A.
I'll offer the resolution, and I won't waive the reading because you just read it.
Second.
We got a motion and a second off the resolution and waive the reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Now we'll go to 5C. First reading of ordinance number 17-015, fifth series, amending section 8.21 of the city code, City of New Ulm, relative to dog and cat regulations and licensing. We discussed this a little bit, or I did it with Roger, and rather than have him make the first reading of it, I'd like to have him explain the ordinance, and then we can discuss it before reading it in case there's anything we'd like to make or change.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the June 20th meeting, I believe, the council voted to instruct me to prepare an amendment to the existing ordinance regarding prohibiting dogs and cats running at large. And so what I did was to draft the amended ordinance that is in front of you this evening. I think I want to make clear that everyone understands what it says and what it doesn't say. This is specifically prohibiting allowing a dog or a cat to run at large. And running at large would mean that the animal is uncontrolled, and it would not apply. It would not apply if the animal is in a kennel, if it's in a fenced area on property, whether that's a physical fence or an invisible fence, that animal is not running at large. It's contained. So this would be situations where the animal is otherwise unrestricted. And at the time that this was discussed at the meeting, I believe that Park and Rec Director Schmitz indicated that on state trails, that the state of Minnesota has said you have to have a 6-foot leash. And so if that's what the state requires, that's what's in here. But then as I was drafting this, I was thinking, well, if you don't have a fence on your yard, and if you have a leash on the dog or the cat, it probably would address the concerns if it couldn't leave the property. So if you have a 100-foot yard and your stake for your leash is in the middle of it and it's 50 feet, the dog cannot get off your property. So presumably that would take care of it. Otherwise, if you're walking the dog or the cat other places, it would have to be on a 6-foot leash. That's why the 6 feet is in here. If you want to have whatever length of leash you think would be appropriate, we can amend this. Depending upon what the council wants to do with the amendments, you can send it back to me to revise it. You can decide not to make any changes. It's obviously your discretion as far as how we move forward on this. But I wanted you to at least be aware of that this does not mean that if someone has a kennel in their backyard or they have their yard fenced, that they also have to put their dog on a leash when it's in the kennel. Obviously not. It's not the case. So
How long are those leashes that people that retract out? They're more than 6 feet. I
Oh,
see them
yeah.
come by my place all the time, and they can control how far the animal goes. I mean, I guess
They're all.
I might have a little hang-up with the 6 feet, but
In my,
Oh, go ahead.
in my mind, we've got a lot of work to do on this. This went from a Park and Rec meeting, let's bring back leashing our dogs in the parks, to all of a sudden, the entire city, let's dictate what people do with their cats and dogs. Cats was never brought up at that park meeting. Now we're at this point. I mean, I'll go right on record. I won't vote for this tonight. We got to do a little more work with it.
Well-
I've talked to a lot of people, had the phone calls, the emails, what about this, what about this? the understanding was it was just gonna be going back into parks. That's what the Park Commission brought to us. And all of a sudden, we escalated to,
Counselor Christian, I just want to make it clear, the existing ordinance requires the dog or cat to be on a leash. It also contained a provision, or otherwise under the direct control of an accompanying person. We just had a child who was bit again this week by a dog running at large. And I think actually this came to the council because of a dog owners group. And I mean, this is what the council decided to do. If you don't want to do the ordinance, we certainly aren't going to do it. But I don't want the public to misunderstand. You cannot allow cats and dogs to run at large in the city of New Ulm right now.
But the problem you have, Counselor, is that that other part of that statement under
control.
there's no definition of that, so that really does need to be cleaned up by us.
I'm very concerned about it. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
what that means.
Right. And same with law enforcement, how can they enforce it if it's not clear?
I think there's many ways that a dog can be under control, either by voice command, by e-collar, or by a leash. And I think that when it's under control, those are the three ways you control it.
What if the dog doesn't listen to the voice command?
What if somebody holding the leash accidentally lets loose of it? I mean, you're always at risk when you have a dog. I've taken many calls and gotten several emails from people that are really opposed to this they've read through the ordinance and they're really opposed to it. And I think they're.
Opposed to which part, the having them on
The
leash on
leash
private
and
property, or?
not being able to use an e-collar, not be able to go to the park, and they're used to taking their dog to a park and throwing the ball as far as they can, or throwing a frisbee, or they want to have access to the parks. And these dogs that are running at large, I question the incidences, and I talked to Attorney Hippert about that. What specific instances are we seeing where these dogs are attacking, are running at large? I just don't know. I would like to see more statistics of really how big of a problem is it? How many has the city had to deal with as far as a law issue that we're trying to enforce? I understand we have one issue ongoing now where we have a homeowner that may not be responsible in keeping their dog leashed.
Well, Counselor, again, I really would like to correct something. I think as the city code is worded right now.
Right.
If someone is allowing their dog to run at large in a park, that's in violation of the city code.
I thought they took that leash law out of the
That was a
park.
duplicate, they did, but that's a duplicate provision. Section 8.21 applies to the entire city of New Ulm. Period. As it's worded right now. It does say, or otherwise under the direct control.
Mhm.
And I guess if someone is letting their dog run and they think their voice command is direct control and it bites someone, I guess it didn't work and they would get charged. But I think I also received communications all from people who own dogs who thought they were glad the city was doing this because their dogs had been bitten and attacked. So everyone has got their own opinion on it. I was just
That's
trying to
right.
do what the council instructed me to do at the
Yeah.
last meeting, so.
Go ahead, name and address to the record, please.
Hi, my name is Jeff Wenier. I live at 22451 County Road 13. I represent the Dog Park Committee. I have one question for Councilman Fisher. What guarantees your dog 100% under voice command?
There is no guarantee. I don't think there's any
It's-
guarantee on an e-collar. There may not even be any guarantee on a leash.
More of a,
The last person that I know that got bit, that dog was on a leash, and the child got bit, and they were in a park. So I guess there's always that risk of dogs.
And that's what we're trying to avoid by having a 6-foot leash. So children don't come up to a dog. They understand that dogs are dogs. They can bite. I'm not saying dogs are aggressive because there is no aggressive dog. We just want to make sure that not only the people are safe, but the dogs are safe. In regards to the expansion leashes, there's been a lot of children who have their necks cut because dog is on a leash like that and it runs around and it slices their throats. There's just one in northern Minnesota not too long ago. They're not a safe thing. Retractable leashes are not safe. That's why the 6-foot leash is the best thing.
I don't, I know what you're saying, but on the other hand, there's nothing that's ever safe. I mean, we can set up policy after policy after policy, but are they really any good? I mean,
Right.
How's it
I kind of agree
enforced?
with Lisa. I mean,
And then you can go back to just like your moped or your wanting to bring in the
ATVs,
carts in the
right.
city, ATV. You can say the same thing about that.
Right, I know, and,
So what we want to do is we want to make sure dogs are safe, humans are safe,
right.
period. So a 6-foot leash is recommended in state parks for a reason. And dogs are not to run at large in the state parks, which if you go on the state park, I see a lot of people from the city of New Ulm letting their dogs run free in the state park. And it's not a safe thing, because if a kid comes up to a dog and something can happen. They're still dogs, they're still animals. Just like we're still human, we can do stupid things too.
As the comment Lisa made, so where are you gonna work with your dog to throw a frisbee or whatever? You can't run out to some
Teach them to
farmer's
hunt
place
or?
Well, I know a lot of people that go out to the Brown County Fairgrounds and run their dogs. Huh? But it's owned by the county.
Yes. I don't think
And they
so.
allow it.
That's also, last time I was out there, that's totally fenced in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so I mean, and they're allowing it.
No, they don't.
I know a couple people that go out there and do it every day. So, but then we can build a bigger dog park.
And maybe that's that. Maybe
Yeah.
that is the motive. I think when I did some statistics and looked at how many dogs are possibly within our city limits, and you probably got between 3,000 and 4,000 dogs within our city limits. To have the size dog park that we have, to go and take your dog to run, that would never be big enough. And one of the emails that I got was wondering what the motive is behind, wanting to get all the dogs to the dog park in
There is no
this area.
motivation. The motivation is safety for everyone, dogs and humans.
And I'm still looking for those statistics within our community where we are, as a community, as our attorney is fighting this issue. I think within our police department, maybe Myron can comment, but I'm not aware of any ongoing issues or, a lot of issues with dogs running at large and biting.
I think we had discussed this
Yep.
earlier, Counselor Fisher. There's currently one case that's pending, as I mentioned. There's another one that recently happened. The one that's pending involves 3 separate attacks. There was another one that happened last year, and I think, for one thing, if a child is injured particularly, it only takes one. And if a child's face is mangled because it was bitten by a dog, maybe that's enough. But again, this is your guys' call. So I'm just trying to, again, I'm not promoting this. I was just trying to follow the instructions I was given based upon the vote at the last meeting.
And I'm sure you've had plenty of emails. I've been to the grocery store and people have called me names because I've been up here talking about this. I mean, calling me a dog hater with dogs. I mean, I called all kinds of things. So, I mean, it doesn't bother me. I want the safety for my dog. If I go down to the dog park and I walk my dog on a dog trail and there's somebody that has a dog off leash, what's the first thing that dog's going to do? Come over to my dog.
Not necessarily. Sometimes if a dog is controlled, it may not
I have
come over
never
there.
seen a dog under complete voice control.
Okay.
And if you want to shock
I-
them, that's
The e-collars don't always take a shock. There's a buzzer that they can be controlled by.
the leash
I-
is the
I-
safest.
I'll read, well, it's always the safest. There's always rules that can be safer. I mean,
And that's
but
what
like
we're
I
trying to
said-
do, get a rule
Right.
and that's as safest as it can be.
But we can start restricting our citizens and keep restricting them and find all of these little laws that they can't do. Who's going to enforce that?
This
And how
law's
are they
been
going to
in effect-
enforce it? So if you have your dog off the leash, are they going to confiscate your dog? Or how are they going to be enforce it? Is there going to be a fine? What penalty are we going to do? Are we going to have neighbors calling in their neighbor because their dog is off a leash? I guess it just pits neighbor against neighbor, and
But according to the ordinance, the dog can be off leash in its own yard if it has a fence and if it has electronic fence, or if it's on on a long leash. So why would that dog need to go over the neighbor's yard?
I guess I'm just against, I'll vote against it. I think it's too restricting. I think the ordinance we have is in place and has received.
But it's not enforced.
Well, then that's the issue. If it's not enforced, or if we have an issue with a dog that is biting, that has bit 3 times, well, how are we enforcing that then?
That's because these people are running their dog, actually physically running and having the dogs run with them off leash. And they can't control them.
I guess I'm not familiar with what specific incident you're talking about or what dog you're talking about. I guess I'm just not in support of it, and I think there's enough people out there that do not want to see the ordinance changed and like to have the access to the park with their animals.
And I don't want my grandkids running in a park and having a dog run around at large.
I think we have a couple different issues here. The private property issue is probably the one I've had the most concerns on my end from, is people that have their own animals. And some of my neighbors have the electric fence, some don't. I have a hard time authorizing that all dogs on your own property have to be on a leash. I just don't know if I could ever support that particular issue. There's a lot of dogs that are very well controlled, and the leash, part of me was like 6-foot leash, 10-foot leash, the retractable leashes. You have large majority of our animals are very well behaved and are not going to be biting people, and to restrict everybody to a 6-foot leash, I have a real problem with that. Could I agree to a leash? Yeah, I could probably agree to some type of leash, but to have it 6 feet, boy, I don't know. I could just see I don't want to see our law enforcement running around with a tape measure going, oh, that's 7 feet. Oh, you're in trouble. I'm writing you up. I got kind of a problem with that. But and we won't even get to the cat issue because you heard my feeling about that last meeting. But I don't think we're ready to vote on this tonight. I think it needs more discussion. I'm hearing that from my fellow counselors. I don't know if we're ready to table this or not. But if somebody else who might want to chat.
Go ahead.
Paul Cruz, 1116 North Jefferson. I got dogs I professionally train. I train right in town here. I got a lot I bought that I professionally train that dog. I've walked around the fairgrounds, had my dogs on leash, and I've had people come with dogs, and all of a sudden they get away on them. What are you going to do about that? It's all the responsibility of the person with that dog.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't the city's fault or anybody else's fault, but the person.
Mm-hmm.
I went to tournaments. There's 400 dogs there. You don't see people walking around with dog collars on them, leashes or anything. They let them dogs go because they're well trained. Went to national tournament, 400 dogs down there. People don't have anybody bit or anything. It's all in the training and the responsibility of the person. It ain't the city's responsibility to do that. It's the responsibility of the owner.
I guess I got a question for Roger. In this section 8.21 subdivision 1, is that our ordinance, just that one paragraph?
Yes.
So, I guess we'll use the word, it is probably a little vague. It just says run at large on a leash. They can't. I mean, do we really need to change anything?
That's the council's
I
decision.
mean, my opinion is we have an ordinance. Dog
mean-
and cat is permitted in such property.
Yeah, right now, the ordinance, of course, would have the language that's stricken on the proposed one or otherwise under the direct control of an accompanying person. It doesn't have the underlined language about the leash requirement, the additional explanation about the 6-foot length, et cetera. So, I mean, it's there right now. And as far as the penalty, it's petty misdemeanor unless there are multiple offenses. It can go up to a misdemeanor level. The animal can get put down if there's multiple offenses. But it's up to the council's decision what they want to do.
Kind of like, agree with what Lisa said. I think it's a little bit on the city's end of not following through on enforcement or doing what we need to do. I guess I'm in favor of just dropping the whole thing and leave what we got, but then we don't have to worry about cats or anything.
You know, I'm going to comment on Counselor Schultz there. The numerous phone calls, emails I got on it too was, again, the city's taking the rights off my property. I had a couple people say that. They're taking the rights off my property. What else are you going to dictate? I mean, I'm okay with it, the parks, streets, and I realize I'm actually going to agree. It's the person controlling the animal. I realize you cannot always control an animal, a big German Shepherd, a pit bull, whatnot, but I don't want to get too restrictive on it.
Well, I mean, if you, counsel, I mean, you can do whatever you want to do. An obvious way of addressing that would be if you wanted to indicate the leash is not required if it's on private property. But yeah, anyone's private property. So if my dog runs across and he's now on your lot and he bites somebody, well, he's on private property. You know, that's not really part of the answer.
Or as simple as the owners of the dog's private property.
What if you rent?
Yeah.
You're not the owner.
I guess we can tear this completely apart if we want to, but.
Make it a 20-page ordinance.
Kind of like on the ATV, make it simple and sweet and done with it, but I don't know. Go ahead.
Just a comment, my daughter and son-in-law inherited their father's and mother's dog. It was kind of, I would say, abused. It was very shy. They went to a dog park. First time at the dog park, everything went great. Second time at the dog park, the dog was attacked. I understand the owner of the dog that did the attacking had been banned from this park, but nobody was there. This is not in New Ulm, this is in the Twin Cities. Has anything happened like that at our dog park, where a dog was misbehaving? Not on a leash and misbehaving. Sometimes I've been down there when people have dropped their dog off and they're busy talking to each other, like I wasn't even paying attention. I didn't have my dog down there, but I wasn't paying attention because we were talking about something else. And all of a sudden, somebody was yelling about a dog. The owner was not physically preparing the dog or watching the dog. Has anything like that ever happened in our dog park?
You always have some issues, but usually they're playful issues.
Oh, well,
On the rare occasion, I received 2 phone calls. 2 people won't be taking their dogs to the dog park because that incident happened. I mean, it's going to happen with animals. You put them in a pen, it's a pen.
and playful to one animal is not playful to another.
Right. I have a small dog and a big dog. The big dog and the small dog don't play the same. So, and that's why there's a small dog area at the dog park and a large dog area at the dog park. But 9 times out of 10, everybody mixes them up, which is not a good thing. And I think we're getting signs put up, small dog area and large dog area, so people understand that. And we try to tell them when they bring their dogs in, the smaller dog, keep them in the small park area, you know, because big dogs play a little rougher.
Well,
Yep.
I'm speaking from an experience
Right.
that my daughter had with her dog, and therefore they had no place to let that dog just walk around. So, That was my question, if it ever happened at our dog park, because I know it's happened at a couple of dog parks.
And you're always gonna have some issue, you know, with dogs, when you get that many dogs, whether, you know, the mix of dogs, sometimes they play a little rougher, and some people don't like it, and they'll say, your dog is too mean to my dog, and, well, it's just the way that type of dog plays.
Well, I received a phone call on a person in Newham who was mowing his lawn. The dog walked by on a leash and turned and snapped and got him in the leg. He's on the leash, but the dog still turned, and so
And that was the owner of the dog, who should have been watching his dog, and that dog probably didn't like the loud noise of the lawnmower. I have a little dog that likes to chase after big trucks. You know, one day she's going to get run over because of that. But, you know,
yeah.
it's
So
his dog's nature.
So if the dog is on a leash, 6-foot leash, and bites me, I have no recourse.
You should have, because the
Well, it's on
dog
a
didn't
leash.
have any.
Doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
The dog either wasn't under control of that owner at all.
I just
The owner
questions
wouldn't
that
be,
are gonna come
the
up.
owner, excuse me, the owner wouldn't be violating
An ordinance.
the old ordinance, the new ordinance. He's got the animal on a leash. If the person comes up and is within range or whatever, as far as recourse, I mean, civilly, whatever, you might have a claim, you know, the dog was known by the owner to be vicious or whatever. But it wouldn't be a violation of our
Of the city law.
ordinance. Right.
Okay.
That'd be the owner's fault for not controlling his dog. Even if it's on a leash, you still have to control it.
I'm not hearing support to move this forward, so I'm going to offer a motion to table this item for further discussion. I just think we have too many unanswered questions, and I don't want a 10-page dog ordinance. So I'm not sure what the answer is, but for right now and for today, I'm going to offer a motion to table this.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to table. Any more discussion?
I think if we can come up with some consensus at some point, we can bring this back, otherwise we won't.
I guess I was hoping that we would just be done with it today.
We might be if there's no consensus.
I think we
Yeah.
could look at it yet, and if we decide to bring it back, we decide to bring it back, you know, or if the group could bring us some more information, you know. And I guess maybe have we looked at other city ordinances as far as they're enforcing their dogs for,
No, I think
Yeah,
it's
no.
kind of all over the place.
All over.
It's whatever you want to do.
I'm
Any more
sure it
discussion?
is.
Otherwise, we'll table it until indefinitely. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 6A, consider acceptance of list of claims paid and approve a list of claims to be paid. List of claims paid in the amount of $5,062,050.11 and approve a list of claims to be paid in the amount of $879,383.79.
I'll move it.
second?
A motion is second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. With no more business,